The next we discussing our next chapter. The chapter name is polynomial. We already discussed the last year what do you mean by the polynomial. What is polynomial in one variable, correct? In an algebraic expression we use only one variable and the powers of variables are only whole numbers. That type of expression is called the polynomials in one variable, correct? So the last year we discussed the degree of the polynomial. I think you remember the degree of the polynomial. Then what do you mean by the degree of the polynomial? The degree of the polynomial means the highest power of the variable in a polynomial is called the degree of the polynomial. Correct? We already learned in the last year. What is that? The highest power of the variable in a polynomial is called the degree of the polynomial. Then on the base of degree of the polynomial, we divide the polynomial as mainly 3. Correct? On the base of degree of the polynomial, we divide the polynomial as mainly 3. What are they? To recall, what are they? Linear polynomial. Do you remember? The second one is quadratic polynomial. And the third one is cubic polynomial. Correct? So on the basis of the degree of the polynomial, mainly we divide the polynomial as 3. What are they? Linear, quadratic and cubic. Then what do you mean by the linear polynomial? The degree of the polynomial is 1 is called linear polynomial. Correct? The degree of the polynomial is 1 and is called linear polynomial. Then what do you mean by the quadratic polynomial? The quadratic polynomial means the degree of the polynomial is 2. The degree of the polynomial is 2. Then is called a quadratic polynomial. What do you mean by the cubic polynomial? The degree of the polynomial is 3 is called a cubic polynomial. I think you remembering the ideas. Okay. Then here, I wrote here some examples. The first one, 3x plus 5. 3x plus 5 is a, which kind of the polynomial? Is a linear or quadratic or a cubic polynomial. Then we check the what is the power, the highest power of the variable in this equation. The highest power of the variable of x is equal to 1. So the degree of the polynomial is 1. So is called a linear polynomial. Correct? This one is linear. Then after we discuss what is the general form of the linear polynomial. What is the general form of the linear polynomial? Yes, the general form of the linear polynomial is ax plus b. Correct? The general form. The general form of linear polynomial. Correct? The general form. The general form of linear polynomial is ax plus b. Then what is the second one? 3x square plus 5x plus 7. 3x square plus 5x plus 7. What is the degree of the polynomial? The degree of the polynomial is 2. So the degree of the polynomial is 2. Then what we call this one? This one is quadratic. Correct? Quadratic polynomial. Quadratic polynomial. So what is the general form of quadratic polynomial? Do you remember what is the general form of quadratic polynomial? Yes, that one is ax square plus bx plus c is the general form of quadratic. Correct? The general form of quadratic. Then what is the third one? The third one is the degree of the polynomial is 3. So this one is cubic polynomial. Cubic polynomial. Correct? So what is the general form of cubic polynomial? The general form of cubic polynomial is ax cube plus bx square plus cx plus d is the general form of cubic polynomial. Correct? The general form of cubic polynomial is ax cube plus bx square plus cx plus d. These all ideas are we already discussed in the last year. What is that? What do you mean by the degree of the polynomial? On the base of degree of the polynomial, mainly we divide the polynomial as 3. What are they? They are linear, quadratic and cubic polynomial. Linear means the degree of the polynomial is 1. The general form is ax plus b. And quadratic means the degree of the polynomial is 2. And the general form is ax square plus bx plus c. Okay. And the cubic polynomial means the degree of the polynomial is 3. The form is ax cube plus bx square plus cx plus d. Okay. Then after what we discuss the next point, or do you remember what we find the next? Then after we discussed the last year how to find the value of the polynomial. Correct? How do we find the value of the polynomial? For example, as like this, p of x is equal to 5x minus 2. We need to find the value of p of x at x is equal to 3. Do you remember how do we find out that ones? Yes. Instead of x, we substitute 3. Correct. Instead of x, we use 3 for find the value of p of x. Where we have the x, there or we substitute the value of x as 3. Correct. So how do we find the value of p of x? Therefore, p of 3 is equal to 5 into x. X means 3 minus 2. Then is equal to 15 minus 2 is equal to 30. Correct? P of 3 is equal to 30. Then what is the value of p of x is equal to 5x minus 2 at x is equal to 3? That one is 30. Okay? P of x is equal to 5x minus 2 and the polynomial x is equal to 3 and the x in the value 3 the value on the value 13 p of x in the value 13 when the value of x is equal to 3. As like it's possible to find the value of p of x if we change the value of x. Correct? Then in the case of quadratic polynomial also we done it like this. The p of x is equal to 4x square minus 3x plus 2. To find the value of p of x at x is equal to minus 1. Find the value of p of x at x is equal to minus 1. How do we do? Then we substitute first, instead of x is equal to minus 1, p of minus 1 is equal to 4 into minus 1 square minus 3 into minus 1 plus 2 is equal to 4 into, what is minus 1 square? Minus 1 square is 1 minus 3 into minus 1 is plus 3. Minus 3 into minus 1 is equal to plus 3 plus 2. So 4 into 1, 4 plus 3, 7 plus 2, 9. So what is the value of p of x is equal to 4x square minus 3x plus 2 at x is equal to minus 1. That value is 9. Okay, I think you remember this one. We done the last year also how to find the value of the polynomial. Okay, then what are the ideas we discussed? First we find the degree of the polynomial. Then after we divide them as mainly 3 polynomial. What are they? Linear, quadratic and cubic. Then after we discuss how to find the value of the polynomial. Okay, you remember this, am I right? In this example, if we finding the value of p of x at x is equal to 2, then how do we do the works? We substitute instead of x is equal to 2, correct? Then p of 2 is equal to, then how do we find the value of p of x is equal to 4x minus 8? Instead of x, we substitute x is equal to 2, correct? So, therefore, p of 2 is equal to 4 into 2 minus 8. 4 into 2 is 8. 8 minus 8. What is 8 minus 8? 8 minus 8 is equal to 0. That means Here we got it, the value of polynomial is 0. Correct? Here we got it, the value of polynomial is 0. If the value of the polynomial is 0, what we call this 2? Do you remember? We studied the last year. What we call it, this one? Yes, 2 is called solution of the polynomial or 0 of the polynomial. Correct? 2 is called 0 of the polynomial. P of x is equal to 4x minus 8. Then what is the 0 of the polynomial? The 0 of the polynomial means which value we choose for x. For getting the value of the polynomial is 0. That one is called 0 of the polynomial. For example, if k is any real number, if p of k is equal to 0, p of k is equal to 0, then k is called 0 of the polynomial. Okay, how do we generalize this idea? If k is any real number, if p of k is equal to 0, then k is called 0 of the polynomial. Okay? നമ്മൾ ഒരു p of x ഒരു പോളിനോമിയൽ ഉണ്ട്. ആ പോളിനോമിയലിന്റെ വാല്യൂ 0 ആകാൻ എക്സിന് എന്ത് വിലയാണോ കൊടുക്കുന്നത് ആ വിലയാണ് നമ്മൾ ആ പോളിനോമിയലിന്റെ എന്തെന്ന് വിളിക്കുന്നത്? 0 ഓഫ് ദി പോളിനോമിയൽ. ആ പോളിനോമിയലിന്റെ 0 എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ആ പോളിനോമിയലിന്റെ സൊല്യൂഷൻ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. ഓക്കെ, ഒരു പോളിനോമിയലിന്റെ വാല്യൂ 0 ആകാൻ വേണ്ടി നമ്മൾ എക്സിന് ചൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്ന വാല്യൂവിനെയാണ് ആ പോളിനോമിയലിന്റെ എന്തെന്ന് വിളിക്കുന്നത്? സൊല്യൂഷൻ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ 0 എന്ന് വിളിക്കുന്നത്. ഓക്കെ, for example, if we generalize, if k is any real number, if p of k is equal to 0, then k is called 0 of the polynomial or solution of the polynomial. This also we discussed the last year. Correct? So, in the case, we listen, how do we find the 0 of the polynomial? Do you remember? How do we find the 0 of the polynomial? This is the idea to check the number is a 0 or not. If we get the value is equal to 0, then we conclude is a 0 of the polynomial. For one more example, p of x is equal to 3x minus 2 at x is equal to 1. Here we need to find the value of p of x at x is equal to 1. How do we find? Or otherwise, we need to check here the x is equal to 1 is the 0 of this polynomial. Here we need to check the x is equal to 1 is the 0 of the polynomial is p of x. Then how do we check? We just substitute instead of x as 1. Then p of 1 is equal to 3 into 1 minus 2. 3 into 1 means 3. 3 minus 2 is equal to 1 is not equal to 0. Correct? 3 minus 2 is equal to 1 is not equal to 0. That means we are not getting the value of polynomial as 0. So we conclude x is equal to 1 is not a 0 of the polynomial. P of x is equal to 3x minus 2. Okay? എന്താണ് മക്കളെ, നമ്മളിവിടെ ചെക്ക് ചെയ്യുന്നു എന്താണ്? P of x is equal to 3x minus 2 എന്ന് പറയുന്ന പോളിനോമിയലിന്റെ 0 ആണോ x minus 1, x is equal to 1 0 ആണോ എന്ന് ചെക്ക് ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ എന്താ ചെയ്യുക? നമ്മൾ ആ P of x ലെ x ന് 1 എന്ന് സബ്സ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്തു. Okay, then we got the value. After that the value is equal to 1. അപ്പോൾ p of x ലെ x ന് 1 സബ്സ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്തപ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് കിട്ടിയ വാല്യൂ എത്രയാണ്? 1 ആണ് അല്ലേ? എന്തല്ല? 0 അല്ല. അപ്പോൾ we never get there the value of p of x is equal to 0. So we concluded x is equal to 1 is not a 0 of the polynomial. P of x is equal to 3x minus 2. അല്ലെ? 0 കിട്ടാത്തത് കൊണ്ട് നമ്മൾ എന്ത് കൺക്ലൂഡ് ചെയ്യുന്നു? x is equal to 1 എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഈ p of x ന്റെ എന്തല്ല? 0 അല്ല. If we got a 0, then we conclude is a 0. We not get the 0, so we concluded is not a 0 of the polynomial. Okay, I think you got it. How to check a given value is the 0 of the polynomial. Next, we want to recall the idea how to find the 0 of the polynomial. Here we have the one example, p of x is equal to 3x plus 12. Then how do we find the 0 of the polynomial p of x is equal to 3x plus 12? Then first we equate this equal to 0, correct? So we are assuming first p of x is equal to 0. Therefore, 3x plus 12 is equal to 0. That also we discussed the last year. What is that? For finding the value of this polynomial, for finding the 0 of the polynomial, first we equalize this with 0. Correct? This is equal to 0 equal to 3x plus 2, 3x plus 12 is equal to 0. Then we transpose 1 by 1, first we transpose 12. Then what is remaining? 3x. 3x is equal to plus 12 is minus 12. 0 minus 12 is minus 12. Correct? 3x is equal to minus 12. So x is equal to minus 12 divided by 3. What is x is equal to minus 12 divided by 3? Minus 12 divided by 3 is equal to minus 4. So what is the 0 of the polynomial 3x plus 12? The 0 of the polynomial 3x plus 12 is equal to minus 4. We do this type of many questions at the last year. I think you remember now the idea of how to find the 0 of the polynomial. Correct? Then x is equal to minus 4 is the 0 of the polynomial. Okay. So, it's a linear polynomial, correct? 3x plus 12 is a linear polynomial. So, now we generalizing the idea how to find the 0 of the polynomial directly. Okay. Then what is the general form of linear polynomial? The general form of linear polynomial is p of x is equal to ax plus b. Okay, ax plus b. Then what is a? A is the coefficient of x and b is the constant. A is the coefficient of x and b is the constant. So how do we find the 0 of this polynomial ax plus b? What is an idea? The idea is same, to equalize this with 0. Then what is first? Therefore, ax plus b is equal to 0. Correct? Ax plus b is equal to 0. Then what is next? We transpose plus b. Then what is get? Ax is equal to 0 minus b. 0 minus b is equal to minus b. Correct? 0 minus b is equal to minus b. Therefore, x is equal to minus b divided by a. Then what is the 0 of the polynomial p of x is equal to ax plus b? That one is x is equal to minus b by a. Then what is minus b? The b is the constant. B is the constant. Correct? And what is a? A is the coefficient of x. So we generalize the idea. In the case of a linear polynomial, what is the 0 of the polynomial? We say the two ways. The first one is as the 0 of the polynomial is equal to. Therefore 0 of linear polynomial is equal to minus b by a. What is minus b by a? The minus b by a means minus of what is b? Constant. Minus of constant by what is a? A is coefficient of x. Coefficient of x. Correct? The coefficient of x, that is a. So, what is the 0 of linear polynomial? In every case, the linear 0 of the linear polynomial is minus b by a. Okay? That is now minus b by a. To remember what is b? B is the constant. And what is a? Coefficient of x. Okay, so in the case of a linear polynomial, it's possible to find the 0 as direct. What is an equation? Minus b by a. That is, of the polynomial is equal to equation minus b by a is equal to minus, what is b? What is b here is a constant. What is constant? 12. Then minus 12 by a means the coefficient of x. What is the coefficient of x? That one is 3. So minus 12 by 3 is equal to minus 4. That are same, correct? The minus 12 by 3. Here also minus 12 by 3. Then it is possible to find the 0 of the linear polynomial as direct by using the equation. The 0 of the polynomial is equal to minus b by a. Okay, b is a constant of the polynomial, a is a coefficient of x. In the case of linear polynomial, is an equation to find the 0 of the polynomial. Now we got it, the basic idea of the chapter, correct? The basic idea, what are we discussing in the 9th class? The same idea we are discussing once again. The next we goes the very important part of the chapter, that one is the geometrical meaning of the 0 of polynomials. The geometrical meaning of 0 of the polynomial. For example, if the p of x is equal to 2x plus 3, p of x is equal to 2x plus 3 is a linear polynomial. So we find the zeros of the polynomial, that we know how do we find the solutions of the polynomial. We substitute any value for x. I choose first the value of x is equal to minus 2. If the value of x is equal to minus 2, then what we get the p of x value? If I choose the value of x is equal to minus 2, then 2 into minus 2 is minus 4. Minus 4 plus 3 is equal to minus 1. So p of x is equal to minus 1. Okay, if the value of minus 2 is value of p of x is minus 2, then what is the corresponding p of x value? P of x value is minus 1. Then next I choose the value of x is equal to 2. Then 2 into 2 is 4. 4 plus 3 is 7. The corresponding p of x value is equal to 7. So if we need to here to represent the solution as graphical form, the graph form. So here this one, x as the value of x and the p of x as the value of y. Okay, so I just draw a graph like this simply. Then I mark first minus 2, minus 1, and I mark the point 2, 7. The last year we draw the graph. We know that for drawing a graph, at least we needed 2 solutions. So we find that one. Then after we mark and we join the points. Okay, that time is very clear. We know, we already learned it the last year. What is that? The graph of linear equation is always straight line. The graph of linear is always straight line, correct? Then here also we got it a straight line. That straight line intersect the x-axis at exactly only one point, correct? That straight line, the graph of linear equation, meet the x-axis at only one point, correct? That means the idea is like this. The graph of linear equation meet the x-axis at only one point means this linear equation have only one solution, only one 0. Okay, the graph of linear equation intersect the x-axis at only one point. That means how many zeros are the equation? Only one 0. That means the 0 of the linear polynomial is exactly 1. The 0 of the linear polynomial is 1. We have only one 0 for this linear equation. Okay, then where the graph meet the x-axis, that point is, that value is the 0 of the polynomial. Here, suppose this graph is intersect the x-axis at minus 1.5. The graph intersect the x-axis at minus 1.5. So the coordinate is minus 1.50. Why? Because the point lies on the x-axis. the point is lies on the x-axis when we know that the coordinate of y is 0. Y coordinate is 0. So, just like this, we study the two ideas. The first one is the graph intersects the x-axis at only one point. It shows that the equation has only one solution or only one 0. Okay. Then the next idea, where the graph meets at the x-axis, that point, that value is the 0 of the polynomial. Okay. Where the graph meets the x-axis, that point is the 0 of the polynomial. That means, what is the 0 of the polynomial of this equation? This equation, the 0 of the polynomial is minus 1.5. Minus 1.5 is the 0 of this polynomial. Got it? രണ്ട് കാര്യങ്ങളാണ് നമ്മൾ ഇവിടുന്ന് പഠിക്കുന്നത്. ഒന്ന്, ഒരു ലീനിയർ ഗ്രാഫിന്റെ ഒരു ഗ്രാഫിക്കൽ റെപ്രസെന്റേഷനിൽ ഗ്രാഫ് എത്ര പ്രാവശ്യമാണോ എക്സ് ആക്സിസിനെ മീറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്, how many times the graph cut the x-axis, meet the x-axis, that is the number of zeros of this polynomial. ആ അത്രയെണ്ണം ഒരു പ്രാവശ്യമാണ് ഗ്രാഫ് എക്സ് ആക്സിസിനെ കട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നതെങ്കിൽ ആ ഇക്വേഷന് എത്ര സീറോസ് ഉണ്ടാവും? 1. If the graph intersect the x-axis at 2 times, how many zeros have? 2. The equation have the 2 zeros. Okay. If the graph intersect the x-axis at 3 points, that shows the equation have at least 3 zeros. Not exactly 3 zeros. Not at least exactly 3 zeros. Okay. ഒരു ഗ്രാഫ് എക്സ് ആക്സിസിനെ കട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്ന പോയിന്റിന്റെ എണ്ണം എന്തിനെയാണ് സൂചിപ്പിക്കുന്നത്? ആ ഇക്വേഷൻസിന് എത്ര സീറോസ് ഉണ്ട് എന്നതിനെ സൂചിപ്പിക്കുന്നു. ഒരു പ്രാവശ്യമാണ് കട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നതെങ്കിൽ 1 സീറോ. 2 പ്രാവശ്യമാണ് കട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നതെങ്കിൽ എത്ര സീറോസ് ഉണ്ടാവും? 2 സീറോ. 3 പ്രാവശ്യമാണ് കട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നതെങ്കിൽ 3 സീറോസ് ഉണ്ടാവും. Clear? Then, what is the second idea? Where the graph intersect the x-axis, what is that point what is the number shows that point? That number is the 0 of the polynomial. Okay? ഗ്രാഫ് ഏത് നമ്പറിലാണോ ഏത് പോയിന്റിലാണോ എക്സ് ആക്സിസിനെ കട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നത് ആ നമ്പർ ആണ് എന്തെന്ന് ആ ഇക്വേഷന്റെ 0 ഓഫ് ദ പോളിനോമിയൽ. ഒരു എക്സാമ്പിൾ പറഞ്ഞാൽ ഇവിടെ ഈ ഗ്രാഫ് എക്സ് ആക്സിസിനെ കട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്ന നമ്പർ -1.5 ആണ് എങ്കിൽ ഈ ഇക്വേഷന്റെ 0 എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഏതാണ്? -1.5 ആയിരിക്കും. ഇക്വേഷന്റെ 0 എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് -1.5 ആയിരിക്കും. എക്സ് ആക്സിസിലെ ഏത് പോയിന്റിൽ കൂടിയാണോ നമ്മൾ വരയ്ക്കുന്ന ഗ്രാഫ് കടന്നു പോകുന്നത് ആ പോയിന്റിൽ വരുന്ന നമ്പർ ആണ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ആ പോയിന്റ് ആണ് എന്തെന്ന് പറയുന്നത് the 0 of the polynomial or solution of the polynomial എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അതാണ് ആ ഇക്വേഷന്റെ 0 അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അതാണ് ആ ഇക്വേഷന്റെ സൊല്യൂഷൻ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. ഓക്കെ. If the graph is passing through the number -3, then what is the 0 of that equation? The 0 of that equation is -3. ഒരു ഗ്രാഫ് വരയ്ക്കുമ്പോൾ അത് എക്സ് ആക്സിസിലെ -3യിൽ കൂടി കടന്നു പോകുന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ആ ഇക്വേഷന്റെ 0 എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഏതായിരിക്കും? -3 ആയിരിക്കും. If you draw the graph of a linear equation, or if you draw the graph of a polynomial, the graph is passing through the point 5. The graph is passing through the point or passing through the number on x-axis. That one is 5. Okay, this 5, the x-axis 5. So, what is the 0 of the polynomial? The 0 of the polynomial is 5. Okay, where the graph intersect the x-axis, that point is the 0 of the polynomial. കൃത്യമായിട്ട് ഓർമ്മിക്കണം. ഗ്രാഫ് ഏതിനെ ഇന്റർസെക്ട് ചെയ്യുന്ന പോയിന്റ് ആണോ എക്സ് ആക്സിസിനെ ഇന്റർസെക്ട് ചെയ്യുന്ന പോയിന്റ് ഏതാണോ ആ പോയിന്റ് ആണ് ആ വാല്യൂ ആണ് അതിന്റെ എന്തായിട്ട് എടുക്കുന്നത് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അതിന്റെ എന്തായിട്ട് വരുന്നത് 0 ആയിട്ട് വരുന്നത്. ഇറ്റ്സ് ഓക്കെ. Idea is clear. On the base of idea we are writing one note like this. The x coordinate of the point where the graph intersect the x-axis is the 0 of the polynomial. Okay, what is that? I told you how do we find the 0 of the polynomial? Where the graph meet at the x-axis, that x value, that means x value means x coordinate of that point is called the 0 of the polynomial. For example, as like this graph, the graph is intersect the x-axis at only one point. Means the graph, the equation contains only one zero. Okay. Then what is the zero of that polynomial? The zero of that polynomial is the graph intersect the x-axis at the point, this point. Then what is the x-coordinate of this point? This point x-coordinate is minus a. So the minus a is the zero of the equation, the zero of the polynomial of this graph. This graph in the equation edano. ആ ഇക്വേഷന്റെ സീറോ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഏതായിരിക്കും മക്കളെ? ഈ എക്സ് ആക്സിസിനെ മീറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്ന പോയിന്റിന്റെ എക്സ് കോർഡിനേറ്റ്. ദാറ്റ് മീൻസ് എക്സ് ആക്സിസിലെ പോയിന്റ്, എക്സ് ആക്സിസിലെ നമ്പർ, ഏത് നമ്പറിലാണോ എക്സ് ആക്സിസിനെ മീറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നത് ആ നമ്പർ ആയിരിക്കും അതിന്റെ എന്തെന്ന് പറയുന്നത്? സീറോ ഓഫ് ദി പോളിനോമിയൽ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്, ആ ഇക്വേഷന്റെ സീറോ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. Now we discuss the idea on the base of linear polynomial, correct? So, if you represent the graph of a quadratic polynomial, then the graph is, the shape of the graph as like this. Okay, the shape of the graph like this or like this. Okay, that means that is open upward or open downward. Okay, this type of graph is called parabolas. What we call is parabolas. Okay, the graph of this shape is called parabola. The graph is open upward or open downward. This type of graph is called parabolas. The quadratic equation graph are in the shape of like this, either this or this. Then already we discussed what is that? The graphical representation of quadratic equation has the came the two ways. What are they? Open in upwards or open in downwards. The graph is called parabola. Here I just simply draw a figure. Okay, a graphical representation of quadratic polynomial ax square plus bx plus c. Okay, it's not, I not draw the graph by exact measurement. Simply for an example I just simply draw a graph. Okay, then is the graph meet the x-axis at exactly 2 points, correct? The graph intersect the x-axis at exactly 2 points means, what is it meaning? It shows this equation, this polynomial have 2 zeros. Okay, എന്താണ് മക്കളെ? ഇവിടെ ഈ ഗ്രാഫ്, ഈ ക്വാഡ്രാറ്റിക് ഇക്വേഷന്റെ ഗ്രാഫ് നമ്മൾ എക്സ് ആക്സിസിനെ 2 പോയിന്റിൽ മീറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട് ഇല്ലേ? ഇപ്പൊ 2 പോയിന്റിൽ മീറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അതിന്റെ മീനിങ് എന്താണ്? ഈ ക്വാഡ്രാറ്റിക് പോളിനോമിയലിന് എത്ര സീറോസ് ഉണ്ട്? 2 സീറോസ് ഉണ്ട്. Okay, then the number, how many times the graph intersect the x axis, the number, how many times? Okay, the number of intersecting the x-axis, the graph, the number of times of the graph intersect the x-axis is shows the number of zeros of the polynomial. Okay, ഒരു ഗ്രാഫ് x-axisനെ എത്ര പ്രാവശ്യം കട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട് എന്നുള്ളത് എന്തിനാണ് കാണിക്കുന്നത്? Number of zeros, ആ പോളിനോമിയലിന്റെ number of zeros-നെയാണ് കാണിക്കുന്നത്. Okay, here the graph intersect the x-axis at exactly 2 points. It means this polynomial have 2 zeros. Then what are they? Then how do we find the zeros of the polynomial? We already learned what is that? Where the graph intersect the x-axis. Right? X-axis ne a graph ഏത് പോയിന്റിലാണോ ഇന്റർസെക്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നത് ആ പോയിന്റിന്റെ x കോർഡിനേറ്റിനെയാണ് എന്ത് പറയുന്നത്? സീറോ ഓഫ് ദ പോളിനോമിയൽ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. Okay, then here what are the zeros of the polynomial? The graph intersect the x-axis at 2 points. The first one is, the coordinate of the first point is minus 3, 0 and the second coordinate is 3.50. So, then what is the zero of the polynomial? The x coordinate of the point where the graph intersect the x-axis. എവിടെ ആണോ ഗ്രാഫ് x ആക്സിസിനെ ഇന്റർസെക്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നത് ആ പോയിന്റിന്റെ x കോർഡിനേറ്റിനെയാണ് എന്തെന്ന് വിളിക്കുന്നത്? സീറോ എന്ന് വിളിക്കുന്നത്. So, the zeros of this quadratic polynomial ax square plus bx plus c is the x coordinate of the first point, that one is minus 3. Then what is the x coordinate of second point? That is 3.5. So the zeros of this quadratic polynomial ax square plus bx plus c are minus 3 and 3.5. X is equal to minus 3 and 3.5. Okay, this graph x-axis meet the point in the x-coordinate minus 3 and 3.5 this quadratic polynomial in the zeros and minus 3 and 3.5. Okay, then where the graph intersects the x-axis, that point x-coordinate is called the zero of that polynomial. Okay, already we learned it. How to find the number of zeros of an equation, zeros of the polynomial. How do we identify that? We just check how many times the graph intersects the x-axis. That much zeros have that polynomial. Am I right? Or polynomial in the zeros under then the kandupidikkan nammal endu check cheytha madi. Equation de polynomial in the graph etra pravisham x-axis ne cut cheyyunnundu ennu check cheytha madi. Then how many times the graph intersects the x-axis, that much zeros have the equation. Zeros is cut the x-axis, that is important. Okay, then here, then after we discuss how it is the shape of a graph of quadratic polynomials, correct? Then that one is open upwards or open downwards, that we call it as parabolas. If we draw the parabolas, they have sometimes they exist 3 cases. Okay, if the chance to exist 3 cases, first one is like this: the graph is intersect the x-axis at exactly 2 points, a and a dash. The numbers a and a dash. Okay, then the graph intersect the x-axis at exactly 2 points means the quadratic polynomial of this graph. The quadratic polynomial of this graph contains how many zeros? Has 2 zeros. Okay, this graph x-axis ne 2 pravisham cut cheyyunnathu kondu idinte quadratic polynomial ne etra zeros undavum makkale 2 zeros undavum because this graph is intersect the x-axis at 2 points. Okay, then the second case, the graph is intersect the x-axis at only 1 point. Within the graph, this graph x-axis then what it shows? It shows the polynomial has only 1 zeros. One point il maatrame cut cheyyunnullu engil adinte meaning endana? Equation ne polynomial ne oru zero maatrame ullu. Quadratic polynomial ne oru zero maatrame ullu. Sometimes the graph is not intersect the x-axis. The graph is not intersect the x-axis means this polynomial has no zeros. One graph x-axis ne cut cheyyunnilla engil avade endana makkale artham quadratic polynomial ne endilla zeros illa, solutions illa. Okay, then how to we identify the number of zeros? In the graphical representation, the graph how many times intersect the x-axis, that much zero have the polynomial. ഒരു ഗ്രാഫിന്റെ ഒരു പോളിനോമിയലിന്റെ ഗ്രാഫിക് റെപ്രസെന്റേഷനിൽ ഗ്രാഫ് എത്ര പ്രാവശ്യമാണോ എക്സ് ആക്സിസിനെ കട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നത് അത്രയും സീറോസ് ഉണ്ടാവും. If the graph is intersect the x-axis at 2 points, it shows the quadratic polynomial has 2 zeros. The polynomial has 2 zeros. If the graph is intersect at 1 point, it shows the polynomial has only 1 zero. Is not intersect the x-axis means the quadratic polynomial or the polynomial has no zeros. In general, p of x is a polynomial of degree n. The graph of p of x intersect the x-axis at most how many points? N points. Okay, that means, what is it meaning? It means the degree of the polynomial of p of x is n. That p of x has at most n zeros. Okay, with the note on endana padikkandathu oru p of x ennu parayunna oru polynomial degree n aanengil adinte graph ettavum koodiyathu adinte x axis ne etra pravasham cut cheyyum? n pravasham cut cheyyum. Oru cubic polynomial graphical representation ഒരു അതിന്റെ എക്സ് ആക്സിസിനെ കട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നത് എത്ര പ്രാവശ്യമായിരിക്കും? 3 പ്രാവശ്യം മാത്രമേ കട്ട് ചെയ്യുള്ളൂ. 3ൽ കൂടുതൽ പ്രാവശ്യം കട്ട് ചെയ്യില്ല. ഏറ്റവും കൂടിയത് എത്ര പ്രാവശ്യം മാത്രമേ കട്ട് ചെയ്യുള്ളൂ? 3 പ്രാവശ്യം. അതിൽ കുറയാം, പക്ഷെ അതിൽ കൂടില്ല. The polynomial is degree 5. The graph of that polynomial is cut the x-axis at most 5 points. That means that polynomial has 5 zeros. അപ്പോൾ ഡിഗ്രി പോളിനോമിയലിന്റെ ഗ്രാഫിക്കൽ റെപ്രസെന്റേഷൻ എക്സ് ആക്സിസിന് എത്ര പ്രാവശ്യം മാത്രമാണ് കട്ട് ചെയ്യുക? n പ്രാവശ്യം കട്ട് ചെയ്യും. ഏറ്റവും കൂടിയത് എത്ര പ്രാവശ്യം കട്ട് ചെയ്യും? n പ്രാവശ്യം കട്ട് ചെയ്യും. അതിന്റെ മീനിങ് എന്താണ്? ഒരു പോളിനോമിയലിന്റെ ഡിഗ്രി n ആണെങ്കിൽ അതിന് ഏറ്റവും കൂടിയത് എത്ര സീറോസ് ഉണ്ടാവും? n സീറോസ് ഉണ്ടാവും. എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ ഒരു ക്യൂബിക് പോളിനോമിയൽ എത്ര സീറോസ് ഉണ്ടാവും? 3 സീറോസ് ഉണ്ടാവും. ഒരു ഫോർത്ത് ഡിഗ്രി പോളിനോമിയലിന് എത്ര സീറോസ് ഉണ്ടാവും? 4 സീറോസ് ഉണ്ടാവും. ഓക്കെ, ഒരു ഫിഫ്ത്ത് ഡിഗ്രി പോളിനോമിയൽ എത്ര സീറോസ് ഉണ്ടാവും? 5 സീറോസ് ഉണ്ടാവും. ഒരു ഫിഫ്ത്ത് ഡിഗ്രി പോളിനോമിയലിന്റെ ഗ്രാഫ് എത്ര പ്രാവശ്യം മാത്രമേ അതിന്റെ എക്സ് ആക്സിസിനെ കട്ട് ചെയ്യുള്ളൂ? ഏറ്റവും കൂടിയത് 5 പ്രാവശ്യം മാത്രമേ കട്ട് ചെയ്യുള്ളൂ. 5 സീറോസ് മാത്രമേ ഒരു ഫിഫ്ത്ത് ഡിഗ്രി പോളിനോമിയലിന് ഉണ്ടാവുള്ളൂ എന്നർത്ഥം. Clear? A polynomial has the degree n. The graphical representation of that polynomial intersect the x-axis at most n points. It means the polynomial of degree n has at most n zeros.